And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, 'cause I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Mad world. Mad world. Ow!
Well, welcome everybody. It is about 4 minutes after the hour here on Saturday, January 4th, and this is, of course, first of two sessions today of Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. It's an ongoing course provided by the tiny little pocket of the interwebs called Living Resilience. And off we go into January, into the first session of 2025. And yeah, it's a wild time. It's been something this past week for me. So I look forward to hearing how y'all are doing, and for us to kind of set a clear foundation for ourselves of relatedness and presence and coherence. That's what I would like to see us do in these two 1-hour sessions today. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd really love it if we could each just do a quick 1 minute check-in of, or you can make it longer than that, but these hours go by very, very quickly. But I would so love to hear how each of us is doing. Just a little bit of a weather report about how's your heart, how's your spirit, how's your view into this coming year. How have you landed in terms of last year? I know that's a huge request in a short period of time, but if you can just give us any little flavor, it would be appreciated. Is there anybody who would begin us out with our check-ins?
I'll go.
Thanks.
Good morning, Happy New Year. In terms of 2024, I think this is just a continuum. It's all been crazy. It's been crazy for a long time. So I think there's more crazy to continue. I don't see there's like a line of demarcations that's going to break up 2024 into 2025. But the morning of 2025, the New Year's Day, I woke up and I was happy and I felt like, oh, we had a purging and it was a new dawn. And it was hilarious because that's when not really funny, but there were all these terrorist attacks on January 1st. If that's a harbinger of what's coming, gird your loins. And as far as like my heart and like, I know this also sounds counterintuitive, but I'm really excited to get this thing rolling with Trump so that we can see what we're dealing with. I mean, I felt like I'm waiting for the executioner, and it's like I just rather go ahead and have my head chopped off, and so see what's coming. Like I'm just sick of waiting. Like on January 20th, we're going to know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So that's my overall prognosis for my personal endeavor at the moment, just waiting with bated breath to see how this thing's going to roll out.
All right. Allison leading the way and setting a high bar for authentic check-ins for 2025. Here we go. Please, Bob.
I feel the same way. uh, the hardest thing is, typing 25 instead of 24. That's you have to think about it constantly until it becomes automatic. But to me, the time that we put on a 24 versus a 25 is a human construct. It's not nature. Nature doesn't give a rat's ass. It changed back on the 21st of December from fall to winter. It knew what it was doing. And so everything is natural, satisfactory. But yeah, let's get this thing going and see where the shit's going to hit the fan. So, all right, that's
Right.
it.
All right. Spicy number 2. Thank you.
Ooh.
Well, I'll bring it down a notch and share that I'm taking up crocheting because this gal needs some relaxation on the daily. So I'm loading up my life. Shoot. I'm loading up my life with things that are calming and substantive. Taking my herbal courses, thinking of taking another Pacifica course in radical ecopsychology, which seems to be the logical extension of my first course there. And yeah, just bringing some calm into my life as much as possible. Yeah, I have the same prognosis. It's going to get total ape shit. And I'm trying to cultivate a sense of humor around it because it's already in the ridiculous and it's going to get so dysfunctional. And my job is to keep myself calm, cool, and collected as much as possible.
Very good. Thank you. Hey, Richard, how you doing?
Hello. Doing pretty well. Uh, Overall, I had an interesting little experience this morning. I get little notifications from people when they read articles of mine or clap for them or respond or things like that. So somebody had read this article I wrote a while back, and I reread my own article because I wasn't even sure what I put in it, but it was called "Can We Salvage Americans' Mental and Moral Health?" And I guess she liked it, but I read it myself and thought to myself, holy shit, I can't believe I wrote all that because it was like really intense and pretty much of a downer. So um, anyway, I'm just continuing to observe and notice everything that's going on in our society, and it looks pretty damn bad. And I'm also kind of eager and like totally not eager to see what Trump and his band of fools is going to do. But anyway, more positive note, my partner and I, Darlene, have been wanting to set up some counseling because we're really struggling with her disability and her attitudes about it and how it impacts our relationship and all that. So we are in the process of setting up some couples counseling. I want to interview the therapist because there's a lot of crappy therapists out there, and I want to see if this is going to be a good one or not. Or we have a couple of choices. So anyway, we're in the process. So yeah, I agree. The New Year is pretty much an extension of the old one, and we're just sitting around waiting to see what will happen in a few weeks, and that's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you. For me, this past week has been one of the most uncentered stretches of time I can remember in my own life. And it was just layer upon layer of just the little things of life, plus some in the background, very large scale things that were prone to knock me off center. But I'd say if I had had just a smaller portion of those things, it would have been well within my capacity to remain centered and move on and keep on trucking. But but because it exceeded my capacity a couple of times, it was interesting to be so aware, like in the moment, I'm not centered. And I'm now prone to say, just from your guidance or your leadership, Allison, I'm not okay right now. I am not okay right now. And I just got to pause. I got to look around. I got to see what's around me. And because I'm not seeing, like my peripheral vision, so to speak, in all ways of looking at that had narrowed in, and my energetic sensitivities had all collapsed in or contracted in. And it's amazing how what a kind of a self-discouraging spiral I could get into with my thinking if I let it. And I could see it, it was kind of like a shark circle doing circles around me. And as it really took something to stay at least minimally, like a fingernail hold on the climb, kind of a
Mhm.
holding on to not that, to keep opening up ever so slightly back into some kind of presence. So I'm just very, very thankful for this work and for what we so often generate in terms of an atmosphere of coherence that can, no matter, even if I can't figure it out right now, I can at least touch into that coherence little by little. And so that's what last week was little by little and bordering on dissociating, which is real different than that stuff I call the liquid state that I have really a great relationship with. With dissociation, it's like a machete is cut off the cord of my presence or my awareness, my relatedness. And so there's a floating that's very cold, like literally chills me
Hmm.
to be dissociated in that way. I don't know if this is communicating or anything similar to you or resonating in any way, but thank you for letting me take just a bit longer on um, checking in because it's so relevant to kind of the basic level skill set or practices that we might take on together and individually to just hold a sense of center, hold that presence, hold that coherence in the face of whatever the heck it is that's coming in this 2025.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad to be here. I'm really pleased to look up and see each of your faces here on the screen. It means a great deal to be here with you. And the same goes for people who are watching on the recording. Only wish I could see your face as well at this time. Is there anything that anybody needs to mention, like you would like to be sure to mention something or a thread that you'd like us to pursue for some bit of this particular session? Yeah, Richard.
I was just remembering, I think it was a couple of weeks ago maybe that lashed out or something. And you said
Yeah.
you wanted to talk with us about that, or maybe that we could, should talk about it. I'm wondering if that's something you want to do, or is it no longer relevant, or what?
Yeah. I think um, I'm always conscious of uh, how short these 1 hour sessions are, and I very much appreciate your reminder and your question. So I could take a minute or two here, and please know that I perhaps offline, or if we decide, yeah, okay, next time, next month, let's really set aside a chunk of time because it's a part of the holding of the space of this group.
Yeah.
And I would like for us all to be, I'd like to be completely transparent. I don't have anything to hide about it, or, some of it's quite uncomfortable. I didn't like being spoken to that way, but I'd be more than happy to because I'm hoping that you all will do whatever you do to create the kinds of circles that you can actually be face to face with people or your own online circles as well. And to hold space in these times is a bit like a rodeo. There's just a huge amount of variation of how people are doing and how they express and how they presence themselves. And so what I'll tell you about her name was Tiffany, and I'm sure it still is. Sorry. Um, and we hit it off in terms of a few email connections and one Zoom call connection, and it seemed like she was someone with an established set of practices and a real history with being able to take on some of the existential challenges that we're all facing. And so it seemed like a pretty good fit that she could come right into community of practice. And at the same time, over about a 10-day period, she started to dive into the materials, especially the recordings of the first few sessions of this course. And in doing so, at first she was very inspired and she had some, very engaging words to share about what she was seeing and hearing and so on. And then the comments started to be quite critical, quite judgmental, and have really a kind of an edgy certainty to them, like she was diagnosing me being neurotic and so on. That certainly I could find little nuggets of truth in everything that she was saying, and I'd be happy again to share at length offline or in some other way. Um, but what I did notice, it was something that again, as I speak to us all, that I want us all to be considering ourselves space holders in this kind of work, however that shows up for you and your family or your relationships or your community. You might have that propensity. You might like to start up having little get-togethers, little circles, little ways of holding space for one another. And there's a lot of shadow in this world going on. We're raised from birth in this incredibly lie infested, um, deeply self-terminating and psychotic culture. We're taking ourselves down. I mean, how mind-blowing it still is for me after as long as I've been engaged with just trying to understand what we're in.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that, yes, it seemed to me that she had some shadow stuff coming up, and she sure, came at me in a way that my shadow stuff, wanted to just, come up and react in that way. And there was I think valuable criticism or valuable suggestions that I could mine from her kind of rough communication. So is that enough, Richard, or does anybody have a question that I could briefly respond to?
Well, I have a question
based on the last thing you said, like she made some suggestions you thought might be valid. I'm curious what kind of suggestions you're talking about.
Yeah. Um, there was, I don't know exactly which parts, um, I don't know exactly which parts of the recorded, classes like this that she watched from September and October and November and so on.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm nearly certain that she's was speaking about one recording that I put out that really implored people to take on doing journaling.
Oh,
That
oh,
it was something that I was just really confounded, like how can folks not be inclined to do something, at least, to do either um, introspective or um, mutually exploring conversations with people, or doing journaling at this time, because it's such a rich time, like a time like no other in human history, that it's a very important tool. So I
hmm.
put it out, I believe, in a kind of a desperate tone or a reactive tone in my own, like a scarcity or fear driven communication, rather than just, hey, here's a suggestion that I found useful, and so on. I could feel that. And so when she mentioned that, I kind of went right to it and thought, yeah, well, for sure, that's one of the things she's pointing at. And that's one of the things that she was calling neurotic. And so if I could just get beyond that, which is kind of, abrupt or abrasive as a way to say it. And,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to buy her way of summarizing my condition, my psychological condition, but
Right.
there was gold there, and I think it was pretty darn good seeing. And so, is that answering what you're asking for an example?
Yeah, and I would just say, hey, at this point, I mean, we're all damn neurotic. I mean, Jesus, I mean, look at what the hell? I mean, look at what's going on in our society. I mean, we're all being driven half crazy by all this crap that we're surrounded by, all the lies and all the bullshit. So, of course, we're neurotic. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's a given pretty much for everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I so appreciate you saying that, and I'd like to suggest, if you have the space for it, I did a interview with a dear friend about 3, 4 months ago. Her name is Holly Trular, and she's a lawyer that takes on social justice issues, and extraordinary, and with
Oh
her
yeah,
mind
yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
yeah. Right.
And she's also a therapist, and her orientation toward integration of, and also she's an extraordinary grief and soul facilitator of large grief oriented group events online and in person. And
I heard that one. It's a good one. Good interview.
yeah, and the thing that I would suggest listening to her for, I learn every time I'm moved right now. It's a woman I love very much, and I learn from her every time. I learn from her presence. Her presence, she could so easily have an edge that have experienced many times in people, in especially social justice world, in that kind of activism energy. There are times when it can have an edge to it that makes it difficult to just soften my heart and be with them and be with the core of what I know they're committed to. I hope this is communicating. I don't mean this as a judgment. I mean it as just these, sometimes it's hard on my heart and hard to soften to be with them. She is so not that way. She's an extraordinary exemplar of someone able to be permeable, to be open, and yet to be fierce with her love of humanity and her love of marginalized communities. And there's just a sweetness in her invitation in that. In her invitation for us to join her with our hearts wide open, cracked open, in the best possible way, to hold that space for the long-standing grief to somehow get some expression, to some venting, some sharing, and to do that together in a good and conscious way. She's just a beautiful person. So I don't quite remember how we got on that thread, but I'm sure glad we got there. And so, all right, Bob, thank you for the quote in the chat, which I should read for folks who are going to be watching the recording. Before I can tell my life what I want to do with it, I must listen to my life telling me who I am. It's from Parker Palmer. Thank you so much for that, Bob.
A good one.
Okay, so anything else that anybody else has? Question? Yeah, Bob.
The interview with Holly, is it on Poetry or Predicament?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's how do you spell her last name?
Yeah, good. It's Truhler. Sorry, I think it's Trulher. Har. God bless.
Okay.
Trulher.
I don't know either.
I also agree with Richard. You know, we all have our neuroses. So, but I'm wondering if Tiffany was collapse-aware or collapse acceptant.
Really a bit hard to tell.
Okay.
For sure, she's aware enough to be engaged in the conversation, and I don't know fully how fully acceptant she is.
I've met very few people that are collapse-aware or collapse acceptance that are that judgmental, or what seems to be that judgmental.
Yeah.
I don't know all the details, but you know, I've just in all the Zooms and all the different. I just have that very few people that want to, you know, be that corrective. You know, we're all in this boat, the same boat, so to speak, kind of thing. You know, but anyway.
Yes, we are.
So anyway, I was just, it might be something worth pursuing in the future if you want to think about it. So I'm open to that also.
Perhaps, Bob, I thank you for that, and I would be absolutely interested in going that direction, especially if it were an opportunity for all of us to engage in what is it to become more and more capable space holders. Like, how can I expand my ability to hold space for others and be clear what I need and want, what my system needs in terms of space holding when I need it.
Yeah, I agree with Sumitra that, you know, her focus is absolutely good. What Alice and I were just talking about was kind of like on the peripheral, watching what's going on, you know, just seeing how the circus is going to put the tents up, that sort of thing. But we still all are engaged in what Sumitra's doing. So Mitra, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name now. So anyway, that internal focus is kind of what you were referring to.
Yeah.
there for a second. So
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Anybody else? Anything else for the moment? All right. If I may, I'd like to take us on a little bit of a tootle through the history of uh, what started out to be the book club here in Living Resilience, which is separate from any courses we were doing and so on. And we actually went through a number of fabulous books. It was really something that I very much enjoyed doing because it really forced my hand to read some of the books that I've always wanted to read. And I brought that book club notion and activity into the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World course. And the original idea was, hey, we could have the book club focus be the focus of the first of two 1 hour sessions, excuse me, on the first and third Saturdays of each month. And the feedback pretty much unanimously that I've gotten, which is really no surprise given what we all talk about in different ways, but my particular jargon for it is the fire hose to the face of too much everything all the time in our world. You know, it's just that's how our world is now. So I've gotten some recent feedback that, hey, I'm not reading a book, and that's why I chose not to come to that first session. It's like, wait, no, please. So I want to make it abundantly clear to whoever's watching this recording and to all of us here, there is no element of curriculum here that if you haven't read something or if you haven't watched a video or something, that you shouldn't come because you just won't be able to keep up with this fast-paced, learning thing. There's just no. By far the preference, the priority for each of us, please know that your presence here is of the utmost value. That's what this coursework is about, is this time we spend together and presence ourselves together. And that if it happens to resonate, the various videos or the book or whatever that is being offered, if it happens to resonate with you, then you've read it or you've watched it and you bring that knowledge, that experience, and you can share about that. And there is still so much value in having your presence here, even if you haven't touched a single piece of the course material. So can I just stop there and just confirm, first, is that clear? Because I want you to know I love you all, and that really this shared presence, this coherence space is what this work is about. Is that clear? And do you have anything to comment about, like too much content, too much about the books, or anything, or a book you might have enjoyed that we covered, or whatever?
I think you're very clear.
Okay. Hey, Robert, good to see you, or almost see you.
Yes. Hey, you can hear me. And
Yeah. And Robert,
hey, that was just what I need.
yeah.
That was just what I needed to hear. I was I guess I didn't realize it was going on today. And then I looked at my email and then it said, this is open to all. And I said, hey, that means I could go just, and overcome the objections of myself that you were just mentioning. So thank you.
Oh,
I appreciate that so much.
You're always welcome, brother. So good to have you here. So I'm just kind of giving a context for some big changes. For me, they're big. They might be smaller for somebody else. So I'm still going to have a suggested book or article or video that we could then um, explore as a central focus in line with the continuity throughout this year. So there will still be content, but please know that really that presence and that coherence and us being here with each other is by far the priority, no matter what. So I'd like to mention that there there seems to be a leaning. So all that stuff aside, whether it's books or not books, it's actually not a, I don't experience it as quite a binary. I just get, there are some books that are really thick and dense and content packed. And one of those I could suggest is Jack Adam Weber's Climate Cure. I have an experience of Jack personally of, yeah, of Jack personally being an extraordinary facilitator and just a very, very
Mm.
thoughtful um, integrator of materials or weave them together in a very strong, good way. So I don't think there's anything I could suggest to him to take out of his book and somehow make it less dense or less long or something. But I would like to just summarize this, and actually, I meant to say more than that. I'll be very much on the lookout for books that have or extended articles or videos that are shorter in length, less dense, but still have gold to be mined from them. Like easy
Mm.
to find things that are truly valuable, like for me, very much eye-opening. And this is an invitation to all of you to keep your eye out for certain kinds of content that you would recommend. Hey, let's do a special focus on this. And again, there have been some truly mind-blowing articles that are maybe short book-ish lengths, and some of them just a few pages that I think would be fabulous as pieces to focus on.
Mm.
For instance, one that I'm very aware of because of our current author that we're working with is Dugald Hine, uh, and his At Work in the Ruins is the book that we currently would be reading. If, I don't know who are reading and who are not. And I've been trying to include a couple of video segments here and there that might be a little easier to take on than reading the whole book.
Whoa, what happened?
Ah,
Something just switched here.
I'm going to, Robert, you've just kind of navigated yourself into us with you onto your whiteboard.
Oh, yep.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was
Okay.
trying to at least give you a picture. Okay. Are you
Um,
there?
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
it's you would want to click on your video, the thing that says video.
Right. I got to get the screen back up. Okay.
Okay.
For me, I see nothing now. So sorry. Sorry to do this.
I was going to
Um,
say, yeah, I was going to give a thumbs up to the videos like of Dugald Hine and other people. I enjoy those.
Well, great, great. All right. So, trying to remember where I was. So there is a different, there are a number of different tracks, if you will, or threads or emphases that each book, each video, each article will have. And something I've noticed, like uh, while Jack Adam Weber may have included, and he did include some amount of quite a bit of self-regulation and attention toward being trauma informed, trauma aware. And I think that's one of his strong suits and one that certainly is of interest to me. But I also noted that it included quite a bit of his Chinese medicine expertise and other topics that I might not have been quite as engaged with. So there was a lot to kind of sort through. And I think that's part of what I'm hearing others say. Like, I don't have the space to read a whole book right now. It's just too much.
Mm.
So again, I don't know that it's a binary. I don't want to say we'll never do a book and we'll never focus on that, but I think there are ways to kind of divvy it up into smaller chunks and still have it be a valuable experience to explore together. I'd like to just read a small, uh, excuse me, quote from another person who we could definitely read a book from or watch innumerable videos from that I find immense value in on a very different track. He has a very different way of expressing himself than Jack Adam Weber. And that person is Michael Meade. And Michael Meade is, I consider a person who hangs out in and is proficient in a couple of other bodies and centers in those bodies than we usually talk about. We haven't talked about them at all yet in this year-long program. We've talked a bit about the physical body. We've talked about a little bit about the feeling body and a little bit about the mental body or sense making. We haven't gone deeply into any of them yet, but we've at least mentioned those three. With Michael Meade, I just can't help but put him primarily in the soul body, which can also be called the archetypal body. And there aren't many folks there in our culture anyway. I mean, there are probably more than for sure there are more than I know about. But Michael Meade is one of the most potent and artful and sincere representatives of that space, that soul body of anybody I know. And I'd like to just kind of mention this because I think in a Michael Meade expresses this point in a more concise and more artful way than Jack Adam Weber. But I would like to very much honor both of them for just having a different way of saying what's a pretty important piece. So here's the quote from uh, Jack Adam Weber. I'm going to share screen real quick. And I'm wondering, I know that Sumitra, you have some fondness for Michael Meade as well.
I
I'm
do.
wondering,
It's like I see him as one of my teachers, honestly.
yeah, yeah. I'm wondering, I know it's kind of a surprise, and I don't mean to be weird with a surprise, but would you be willing to read this quote from him?
Sure.
Okay, I'll have it up in just a sec. Okay. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. As people are learning all over again in the modern world, when people who will not acknowledge their own woundedness are given power, they will make new wounds and possibly wound everyone because of their need to deny their own woundedness. The word heal means to cure and specifically to make whole. It turns out that being a whole person means we have to accept our vulnerable parts and that we have to accept and learn to face our original inner wounds. For in this old mythological understanding, the fateful event of being wounded early in life creates the need for a deep healing process that becomes the path of awakening for each person. The wounded healer is ever wounded and ever able to find ways of healing. It's an archetypal condition. The point has never been to become perfect or perfectly healed or completely whole. The point has always been to become holy. That is to say, complete with our vulnerabilities and our wounds, because the wound becomes a womb from which we are intended to be reborn again and again. And that is why the old saying was, the afflicted are holy. That's one of my favorite passages.
Thank you so much for doing that. So, gosh darn it. I have an 8-minute clip that I was hoping to play you from a recent talk that Dugald Hein did in his home country of Sweden. Um, Let me just pause and find out. Is there anyone who's moved to share anything about that Michael Meade quote that Sumitra just read? Or, yeah, please, Bob.
We all know we're not perfect, and we know all we've had trauma in our lives. Uh, a lot of the early trauma, though, gets suppressed, and even though it affects us the rest of our lives, some people don't even know how to get back to it, to recognize it, to work on it, like Michael Meade was talking about, to that kind of thing. So some people, it's not their fault that they can't get to the wound. They don't know how to get to the wound. But yeah, I mean, that's what he was talking about is correct. It'd be nice if everybody could figure out how to find out that they even have been wounded to the point of suppression or unrecognition of that wound. Acknowledge the woundedness. I mean, when a person goes through the 12-step program in AA, even though they've been, alcohol free for 30 years, they still have to acknowledge that they are an alcoholic. And so once they can acknowledge the wound, then it's always there for them to work on, But there's a lot of people and I think some of the people he was talking about that can wound others, whether inadvertently or intentionally, don't all know their own woundedness itself. So you can be on both sides of that spectrum. You can be the wounder and not know your wounds, and you can be the receiver of wounds and not know the wounds. So yeah, you're coming to learn to know yourself, which I think in just a short phrase, coming to know to learn yourself, coming to learn to know yourself, I get my tongue going straight here, is about as simple a way of saying that's the work that we have to do. Not so much worry about climate, do what we can while we can, but improving ourselves, putting our mask on first, being able to help ourselves before we can help others, that kind of thing. So anyway, That's it.
Thank
Well,
you.
I asked a therapist, one of my therapists, what percentage of the population goes to therapy? So she said maybe 1%. And I
Yeah.
said, what percentage of that completes therapy? And she goes, not many. And so I asked that question because of what Bob was just saying is,
Know what's going on?
so the thing is,
Yes.
we have the ability to recognize our wounds, but you got to know that it exists first. You have to be introspective enough to know that you need help, or that there's something that you want to work on that's not good for your life. I mean, this concept is really important, but the percentage of the population that is aware, number one, and number two, willing to do the work, it's precious few. And I mean, we're lucky that we are paying attention and that we're taking care of ourselves and that we're acknowledging our collective and individual neurosis, because, everybody has that we come together and we clash, and, there's all this turmoil because people don't know how to deal with it. But, most people, they aren't even aware. And so this speaks to collapse, which really, really concerns me, because when things start becoming obvious and very intense, or the climate crisis amps up, is most people aren't going to have the resources to deal with this. And I think that's what's going to be like a Mad Max scenario, as far as mental health goes. So, this is very, very, very concerning. And when I used to try and bring up climate change, I was always assaulted with, that doomer accusation. And I was willing to take that because I believed what I was saying. I thought I was doing people a favor by trying to bring them into reality. But that always backfired. But now that we're in it, and the denial is still like rampant, this is going to be there's going to be a moment in time where this is going to get real crazy.
Mhm.
And I am concerned. And like, you have to do really, really deep work to know that you're even wounded, that we're just infected with these lies that are just, I mean, we're so conditioned, it's like hard to peel the layers back.
Yes.
So this is gonna, like, this group is good. We can talk about it, but it's gonna get really hairy, I think.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. Bob, I'm going to ask you to just pause for a second because you were just speaking, and we're coming up on the top of the hour. We're going to take a half-hour break and then have the second hour session starting at 30 minutes past the hour. And I'm wondering if Sumitra or Richard or Robert, if you have a minute's worth or two of something you would like to share as we close this envelope. I see you nodding.
Yeah, well, thank you all for being here and tolerating my non-video. But yeah, I suppose the wait just to bring it up to speed, Dean and others, that I've been doing, rather than attending these sessions of last probably month or so, is my football team has been playing on at times, a lot of the times that Penn State, and that is, I guess, that little soul type thing. Went to school there. I have all these memories. Way of connecting. Now, it's superficial, you might say, But what does Woody Allen say? You know, they said that sex without love is an empty experience. He says, but as empty experiences go, it's one of the better ones. And and I think maybe that's the way I feel about following my football when I have this euphoria, the team is winning, and I can connect with my friends and feel like all the world's good. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert.
Uh,
Mitra, I saw you nodding before. Do you have something that you'd like to
Oh,
share?
I was gonna say, I feel like this for me is the conversation that it's where everything springs from, is this inner place of healing. And even in, you know, if you look at like even traditional societies, a lot of their ceremonies are built around healing, 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 because we're always kind of getting out of balance. So this conversation about healing um, is not just for traumatized people. In fact, the people who aren't traumatized are the ones that probably really, really, really need to look at it.
Mhm.
And as someone who's been on the healing path for most of my life, like pretty intensely, more intensely probably than most people because I've had to, is that it's just taken decades and decades and decades of work to
Mm.
actually have the breakthrough or the breakdown of healing, because it's taken so much work to just dismantle the wall enough that the wall comes down.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people from the outside look at my life and judge it, but I can tell you that it's been so much work just to feel like I'm connected to myself and connected to the earth.
Mhm.
And like I'm still working on it. Oh my God. So yeah, this path is I think it's the path to for me to be on right now, and everything else is in relation to that: climate change, politics, everything else, because I can see the dysfunction very, very clearly. And I can see things very, very clearly through my own lens of just 45 years of intense healing practices and commitment
Mm.
out of necessity. Um, and so we can talk about all the all the symptoms around us, but like the illness is in here because we've caused most of this, if not all of it, because of our imbalances. So I'm more interested in that conversation.
Mhm. Thank you. Bob, can you do a quick round of whatever it is that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll just read it. Science and the operating system we live and operate under wants us to remain on the material surface and away from the soul and the spirit underlining and supporting everything. That is why collapse must happen and transformation of the system is impossible. Healing from a capitalist point of view is to buy more.
Mm.
And who's that saying that?
Oh, I just wrote that.
You just wrote that.
Yeah, I just wrote
oh, wow.
Good
Pretty
job.
good.
Could you bring that to the next session and pop it into the chat?
it. Sure.
Thank you. Richard, was there anything you wanted to speak up about in this last moment?
Of course. I always have something to say. Well, almost always, but um, yeah, I really want to kind of second, I want to second what Allison said, and well, what everybody's been saying, really, but especially what Allison was saying about, the rarity of deep personal growth work and deep healing work, and I think that's going to become a tremendous problem in the next few years. like she said. I really agree, and it is really concerning because I think a lot of people are going to be flipping out. And I'm reminded of that phrase that they use in the abuse community a lot, where they're dealing with different kinds of abuse, and that is hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. It's really true. And we got a lot of hurt people out there who aren't dealing with their hurt, and they're probably going to turn it on other people, and it's going to get really nasty. So I'm not looking forward to that aspect of collapse at all. I think it's going to be really horrendous. And it worries me. Like Allison said, it is very concerning. And I don't really know if there's anything we can do about it, because a lot of these tools are available. They're even more available now with the internet, but most people just don't want to go there. They do not want to go to those places and look at those things about themselves. And that's a huge problem. And unfortunately, I think it's going to start manifesting outwardly more and more, and that really does worry me.
Yeah.
That's, and I'm glad to be here. And thank you, everybody. I mean, I always enjoy these times together.
I got it. Thank you. Is there anybody who's on the screen now that is not able to join us in a half an hour for the next and final hour?
Nope, I'll be there.
All right.
I may or may not. I have to check with my other half.
Okay. Well, we sure hope you can come back, but if not, you know where the recording will be. We love you. And I'll see you all in about a half an hour.
Good. See you then.
And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, 'cause I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Mad world. Mad world. Ow!